Hello, and we're here to discuss why the Tsarist regime collapsed in 1917.
There were several main people involved. Most importantly, Tsar Nicholas I, second, the Tsarina, Rasputin, and Stolypin. Now, the Tsar had previously come to power in 1894, and in 1905 he entered a war with Japan and survived a peasants' revolt. Now, by 1914, Russia entered the First World War, and the Tsar was slowly losing control as his people and his support crumbled under him. This was indirectly or directly caused by Rasputin and Tsarina, because the Tsarina was increasingly dependent on Rasputin's help, and the Tsar himself was almost entirely subservient to his wife.
Well, I'm doing about how the Tsar reacted to Bloody Sunday. Bloody Sunday was on the 22nd of January 1905, where a crowd of 200,000 protesters went to the Winter Palace to give a petition to the Tsar. But the Tsar had already left St. Petersburg and trouble appeared, and he told his soldiers to shoot the protesters. And he lost on that day with the support of many of the peasants and also Father Gapon, the guy who led the protest. And in response to what happened, to try and gain support, he created the Duma and also free speech and the ability to form political parties. A month later, he gave financial support to peasants, and although he did create acts of kindness, did raise some suspicion. The Tsar also made peace with Japan and brought back troops to crush the later revolts.
I'm talking about the effects of World War I on Russia and the Tsar. The war affected many key groups in Russia. The main of these were the army, the people in the army, the peasants and the middle class. At the start of the war, much of the nation and the youth, therefore the army, put the Tsar's bad leadership aside and were eager to fight against the threat. However, this wasn't necessarily because the Tsar told them to, but it was more to defend Russia and their homeland. Many of the army were brave and enthusiastic. However, a lot of them were untrained and under-equipped, so they suffered heavy losses, which they blamed on the Tsar, as he was commanding them in the late stages. There are many officers that weren't very battle-equipped and treated them very poorly. The industry didn't supply the army with essentials such as boots, rifles and ammunition, and this massively lowered the Tsar's popularity within the army. With the peasants and factory workers, it was hard to survive. Families who had lost the working members of their family often never received their war pensions. The workers had longer working hours without an increase in pay during the war, although there was less unemployment as the unemployed were shipped into working jobs. But however, the working conditions became even more cramped, and it was horrible, so many people got against the Tsar. And finally, everyone in the middle class could see the queues for the necessities such as bread, because the railways couldn't bring it in fast enough from the countryside, so the food was lost due to bad management. And also the middle class were very unhappy with the conditions of the soldiers from reports, and also the people around them. Many of the middle class started to join war committees that could aid the war effort, and these committees made their own medical organisations which were more effective than the governments, so that people saw the Tsar as not being very useful to the people.
Why was the March 1917 revolution successful? Well, the army was away fighting, and also a lot of the army that was away fighting was dead, which would have lost a lot of confidence in the Tsar and his army. And the army that were there, they obviously lost confidence too, and they turned against him and joined up with all the protesters. And yeah, they went and joined up with all the strikers. They betrayed officers and they even shot some of their own officers. The revolutionaries had taken control of the food supplies in the city, and there was also International Women's Day, so there was a lot of protests out already. There was strikes, so this was nothing new, and there was a lot of confidence to start a revolution. There were food shortages, so everyone was very desperate. The Duma had set up an alternative government which would have given the people something to fight for, and the Tsar was pretty much what everyone was united against, and in the end, I guess they got what they wanted.
Some of the problems that the Tsar faced between 1905 and 1917 were that in 1905, there was a huge threat of a revolution breaking out, which the Tsar had to deal with. This led to the creation of the Duma to appease the people, and this led to more problems for the Tsar, as the Duma was very critical of the Tsar and everything he did. By 1912, even members of the Duma who had been appointed by the Tsar were critical of the Tsar's ministers and his way of running Russia. The failures of the war led to a significant decrease in the Tsar's popularity, as many of the troops were dying needlessly, and this led to many families being without fathers or being without husbands or sons, and they all blamed the Tsar. This is all backed up by the Russian people believed that Rasputin was manipulating the Tsar and the Tsarina, so all of the Tsar's decisions, people thought Rasputin had full control over.